Hello. Good. How are you? Oh, I believe it. No, don't be sorry at all. So fun, right? Especially right after the holidays. I feel like it gets so busy. And we'll be sure that we clean up when we wrap up today before tomorrow. I know it's a big group. So, wonderful. Wonderful. Hi, Tori. Hi, Jenny. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, hello.
Hello. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us. Sydney will be on shortly. We're actually in the middle of filming for one of our other programs. That's my sweatshirt. But she'll be on shortly, but I'm happy to help get everyone started.
Awesome.
And then do either of you have any slides that you'll be sharing? If so, we can do a quick tech prep just to make sure everyone's good to go.
I do, and I sent them before, so I'm wondering if you guys want to present them or if you want me to. It'd be easier if I do it, if you want to get.
Yeah, let's have you do it. That way you can go at your own pace and filter through.
Cool. And do I have sharing?
Let's see. You
It looks like it's enabled.
Oh, good. And Jenny, it looks like you're from My 529.
I am.
Ah, awesome. I love this. Such a great program.
Tori, remind me, where are you from?
I'm the CEO for a company called Reset Your Nest, and we do home organizing here in Utah. But our mission is to financially empower the organizers, and it's mostly moms. And like the first question is, how do I pay for my kids' school? So we talk a lot about My 529.
Well, that's awesome to hear. Thank you. And I love organization, so.
Who doesn't, right? Especially if you're not
everybody, but I do love organization.
Wonderful.
I've got shared screen options, so I'm all set.
Perfect. And I made you both co-hosts.
So Mallory, once I've presented and we've kind of filtered through any questions, then I can jump off. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And this first group is a little bit smaller. It's our junior mentee group. We typically have about 20 girls that join. And then our second one is our mentee group. So the junior mentees are 7th to 10th grade. The mentees are 11th grade through college seniors, and that's a much bigger cohort. So we typically have about 40 to 50 that join that one.
Great.
Just to give you a quick heads up. And then Sydney shared my bios, your bios with me. We'll start out introducing Jenny and then turn the time over to her. And then Tori will read your bio right before we introduce you about halfway through.
Great.
Awesome.
Perfect.
Mallory, remind me, how long do you want me to keep it? Like, is it Q&A? Give me my time.
Yeah, I would say, okay, let me actually look at the agenda really quickly. So we have Jenny speaking from about 4:35, 4:40 until, 4:35, 4:40 until 5 o'clock. And then we would have you, Tori, from about 5:05 once we finish introducing you to about 5:25. Typically, we get about 3 to 5 minutes of questions.
Okay.
So I would say plan on speaking for about 20 minutes, then leaving the last few minutes for questions.
Close up at 5:20. Okay.
Yep.
It's the stop time. Just tell me when it is and I'll get there.
Perfect.
And I probably won't take all the time, so there might be extra time. So
yeah. And if you wrap up early, don't worry about it at all. The girls are just fine with that.
I'm sure.
You know, they're 14. They're happy to get some time back.
Get back on TikTok or whatever.
Exactly. Okay, perfect. And let's see, can you both see my screen?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Looks good.
Okay, well, I'm going to start admitting some of the girls that are coming in. Hello, welcome everyone. see we have quite a few joining, so we'll give it just a minute for the remainder of our attendees to filter in. But thank you so much for taking the time to join us today. We have some great speakers and we're so excited to have you with us. As a reminder, as we get started, this is a perfect time. You can either use the QR code or I will also put information in the chat. My apologies. Here's the form that we're going to be using today. Do you know what? I'm actually going to stop sharing for just a second. And feel free to visit that QR code, or here in just a moment, I'm going to be dropping it in the chat as well. We'd love to have you just report that you were here. We go through, we have prizes and giveaways that we do to thank you for your time. Thank you for taking an evening to learn from these incredible women that we have. And so we really encourage you to share the information. Just let us know that you were here, and that's how we keep track. Before we get started, we also do have our Women Who Succeed applications open, and these are open for this coming year. So if you are in 7th to 10th grade, or you'll be in 7th to 10th grade through this coming year, we encourage you to reapply as a junior mentee. And if you are going into 11th grade and you'll be a high school junior, we encourage you to apply as a mentee. And you'll have the opportunity to receive personal mentorship from amazing women just like Tori today. And so it's a great opportunity. You can do that through either emailing us or visiting womenwhosucceed.org. And we're happy to help get you set up. But with that, we'll give it just one more minute. I know that we have a couple of girls still joining, and we'll go ahead and start with our picture. While everyone is marking the attendance sheet, are there any questions, or has anyone received any questions about registration for this coming cohort? Yay, Raya, happy birthday coming up. That's so exciting. Hopefully you have some fun plans. Wonderful. Okay, so with that, we will go ahead. We're going to take a group picture. We do this every month. And so if you could just take a second, turn on your camera. It doesn't matter where you are, or, you know, if you're in your car listening in. But we just want to have your beautiful faces on the screen for a second, and we're going to get a picture all together. Okay, ready? Oh, we'll give a second for Claudia. 1, 2, 3. Perfect. Beautiful. And we love highlighting you. We share these on our social media, but this is just so fun to have everyone together, even if it's virtually. With that, I'm excited to introduce Jenny. Jenny's going to be speaking first. She's with My 529. And then following Jenny's remarks today, we're going to hear from Tori Horton. And so just a little bit about Jenny. Jenny Sass brings 15 years of sales and marketing experience to My 529. She has a bachelor's degree in marketing communications with a minor in business management. So for those of you that are interested in business and marketing, you'll be excited to hear from Jenny today. After 8 years in advertising sales at Star Tribune newspaper in Minneapolis, Jenny moved to Utah to continue working in sales and education-oriented companies. For the last 8 years, Jenny has worked as an outreach marketing specialist at My 529, working on sponsorships, contests, education, business initiatives, and so much more. And so this month, where we're focusing on financial literacy, Jenny is a great community partner, and we're so excited to hear from her. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing, and we'll turn the time over to Jenny.
Awesome. Well, I will share my screen. Let me get that set up here. There we go. All right. By a show of hands, who is familiar with 529 plans? Just out of curiosity. Right, I gotta move this thing so I can get the slideshow moving. All right. Do we have a few hands up, or do we have nobody? Okay, great. Sorry, I was kind of working on getting the slideshow going here. Great. Well, this will not be new information for some of you, but I hope to give a really good overview of 529 plans. And when I started working for my 529 almost 7 years ago, I had no idea what a 529 plan was. So they started, and I'm going to age myself here, but I was in college when 529 plans started. So your parents are probably familiar with them, but I think this will be a great kind of overview and introduction, not only to what 529 plans are, but some other things that we offer that may be of interest to you. All right. Here we go. So one of the questions that we get often is, when should I start saving for college? Is it too early? Is it too late? People can open 529 plans as early as when a child's born and they have a social security number. But that being said, it's never too late to open a savings plan for college as well. So we're going to talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit about how saving is better than borrowing and the impact of student loan debt. I'm sure you guys have probably heard a little bit about student loan debt or seen headlines in the news about that and the effects that it has. The basics of a 529 plan will cover. We also have a great free calculator tool you can utilize to calculate the estimated cost of college, and that's free to use. And then we have a couple of great scholarship opportunities available through my 529 that I think you might be interested in. All right, so this slide here depicts how it's never too late or too early to start saving. So this shows the impact that even a small amount of money can make each month if you start saving. So, and this is kind of assuming that you're starting in high school to do some saving. And this doesn't necessarily need to be your parents. It could be you. You could put some money aside if you have a job and you're making some money. I had a job in high school. I don't know how many of you guys are employed or looking to be employed maybe in the next few years. I worked at a grocery store, and I think I wasn't thinking about necessarily saving for college. It was probably more buying clothes and things at that time. But I think there's a lot of value in taking some of that money and setting it aside. And so this could show the impact. And really one of the points that I want to drive home is that paying for college is a combination of things. So not to look at it, like, man, I have to pay for this whole thing. Or, hopefully I'm going to get scholarships for everything, but more so that paying for college is a combination of things. Awesome. All right, so this right here shows the impact. And I know this might be a little bit difficult to read or to decipher, but basically it shows the impact of saving versus borrowing money. And when you borrow money, as you probably are aware, there's usually interest attached to it. There's usually amount that you have to pay back. And so, in the event that you need to pay for something that's a certain amount and there is a total cost involved, if you were to take the money and borrow that money, it's going to be more cost to you than the item initially costs, if that makes sense. So you're going to be adding extra interest payment. And so that $10,000 is going to turn into $13,933 versus if you take the time to do some saving, then, and you've invested some money, then you're not going to be having to pay back that money. So, and then this chart right here just depicts what even a small amount of money, and again, we had another slide that kind of depicted that, but just if you were to invest in something like my 529 and assuming a 5% annual rate of return, your money could potentially grow, and that little seed money that you're putting into an account can grow over time and have some impact in terms of helping you to pay for those college expenses. Great. So in terms of what a 529 plan is, we are Utah's official educational savings plan, and we have been around since 1996. And every state has a 529 plan, with the exception of Wyoming, for whatever reason. And we are an after-tax investment. And so you guys probably aren't familiar with Roth IRAs because that's not on your radar yet. But for parents or us who may be investing in saving for retirement, it's an after-tax investment option, and it has a similarity to how a 529 is structured. So an account is opened. It needs to be an 18 or older person to open that account. Typically it's a parent, can also be a grandparent. And then the money goes in post-tax, and any earnings on that money is going to be tax-free when that money is taken out to be used for what we call qualified educational expenses. And we'll talk a little bit more about that. We are a direct sold plan, so you go directly to us to open an account. Sometimes there's confusion about going to a bank or something to open the account, but it's actually opened directly through us. So we're quasi-governmental. We are under the system of the Utah System of Higher Education, and also the state of Utah, and we are payrolled through the University of Utah. So we're kind of in that higher education realm. Great. So in terms of the essentials, I kind of highlighted this a little bit, but in terms of some terminology, like I said, an account owner would typically be a parent, guardian, grandparent, 18 or older, who has a social security or tax identification number, and then they designate a beneficiary on the 529 account. And that can be a child, it can be a grandchild. There is no cost to get signed up with us, which is great. And there's no minimum contribution requirement. So at any time you can open an account. You don't need to feel like you have to put money in it. Maybe it's just for special occasions, that type of thing. All right. And then you guys probably have some familiarity or will with financial aid and funds for higher education. And there is some information I just want to share about that. So as I said, paying for college is kind of, it's a holistic strategy of different things. My 529 plan can be part of that strategy for college. Paying for college involves pulling funds from different buckets. So money that you don't have to pay back and money that you do. So scholarships and grants fall into the category of money you won't have to pay back. And if your student qualifies, scholarships and grants can greatly reduce the overall cost of college, but typically don't cover the entire cost of tuition and room and board. It's interesting, as I've been out in public, when I've talked to some parents who have children who have received full ride scholarships, it doesn't cover everything. And so just to kind of bear that in mind, even if that's your aim and you're on track to maybe get a full ride scholarship, there are still fees and different things, room and board, that aren't covered by that full ride scholarship. There's also student loans and personal loans fall into the category of money that you have to pay back. And like I said, it's more economical to save rather than borrow. My 529 plans, like my 529, help families save in advance for higher education. So one of the questions that we get is, does a My 529 account change the possibility of qualifying for financial aid? And this is just something I wanted to highlight really quick. Your 529 funds will have a much greater impact on your ability to pay for college than on the amount of financial aid you qualify for. When you file for financial aid, you'll need to complete the free application for federal student aid form known as a FAFSA. And they'll process your application and give you a number called the expected family contribution. And that EFC number is really handy because the school uses that to calculate how much financial aid you are eligible to receive. And they use a formula that includes a family's taxed and untaxed income, assets, and benefits, as well as family size and family members attending college that year. And those 529 assets are factored into the EFC, but the overall picture of a parental assets only count up to 5.64%. So that's great in terms of potential impact it may have. All right, and like I said, we have a partnership with a company out of Boston called Invite Ed, and we have a free service that we extend, and it's a college savings estimator. So you're welcome to go in there and start playing with numbers to see, you know, what you may need to save, what the cost of college looks like. I think it helps to kind of put things into perspective. And then lastly, I wanted to highlight a couple of scholarship opportunities we have, because everybody's always excited about scholarship opportunities. So our next scholarship opportunity is Book Your Summer, and that is a partnership in conjunction with the state library system. So the entry for that is very easy. You just go to your local public library and you register for the summer reading program, whatever that may look like at your library. And then you go to bookyoursummer.com and you enter to win one of what will be this year's 6 $1,000 scholarships. So no essay writing, nothing, you know, that you typically may associate with scholarships. So great opportunity there. The second one happens during September, which is nationally designated as College Savings Month. And that's a bookmark design contest. And so for those of you who have artistic abilities, we actually give out $8,000 of scholarships. And there's 2 for each grade category, K through 3, 4 through 6, 7 through 8, and 9 through 12. So there's some good opportunity there. And I could say just anecdotally that there's a lot of girls that I just think they're just more artistically inclined or feel like, you know, they want to enter the contest. And again, like that could change, but just kind of historically looking at some of the winners, we definitely have a lot of gals that enter and win that. All right, and being in the financial industry, we have plenty of disclosure. So I just wanted to just highlight our disclosure here quick. And one thing that we do tell people is, you know, if you were to move, definitely look at your state's plan first, because you want to make sure Utah has a state tax credit that parents or grandparents could take advantage of. And so as you move to other states, there could be those type of things to take advantage of, and you don't want to miss the opportunity for those tax credits and things if you were to move out of state. And maybe my 529 turns out to be your best bet still, but we just want to encourage you to do that. All right. Happy to field any questions anybody may have.
And we'll also be monitoring the chat. So feel free to raise your hand and ask a question, or if you feel more comfortable dropping it in the chat, we'll be happy to do that as well.
Yeah, and I'm happy to leave my contact information in chat too. So for whatever reason, you know, someone doesn't want to voice their question, they can email me as well.
I have a question, Jenny.
Yeah.
Let's say that some of the girls are interested and want to share information with their parents or with their legal guardian. What would be the best way for them to share that information?
So, and that's a really good segue, Mallory. So nationally at the end of February is America Saves Week, and Utah has their own equivalent of that. And so my 529 works with entities like Jumpstart, which some of you guys may be familiar with in terms of financial education in the classroom, as well as a treasurer's office up at the Capitol to promote Utah Saves Week. And so we will have actually a promotional offer to get started with an account with us. And what that is a $20 match. So if you're new to My 529, your parent decides to open an account, they seed that with $20. We'll do a one-time match. And so I will get that information to Mallory when that is ready, and she can pass that along to this cohort. And that's a great opportunity to get started, you know, when you have a little bit incentive to do so.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Let's see, that gave everyone a second to think. Any questions that you have for Jenny before we move on to Tori? Zoe says, what is the best website when looking for scholarships?
Well, I would say Keys to Success is a good one. I'm sure you guys promote that. Yeah.
Thank you for that plug. And Zoe, Keys to Success is available for students in 7th grade on. And so you can search by scholarships based off of your location, if you're a first-generation student, what you're interested in studying, what you like to do, all sorts of things like that to help kind of narrow some of the scholarship opportunities to things that are more applicable to you. Great question. Jenny put her contact information in the chat. Thank you, Jenny. That's kind of you. And before we sign off, any further questions for Jenny? Okay, perfect. Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate your time today, Jenny. Yeah. And have a wonderful evening.
Thank you.
Excellent. Well, with that, we are excited to turn the time over to Tori. And a little bit about Tori, I'm actually going to spotlight her so that you can see her cute face. And in the meantime, Zoe, Kate put another great website, bold.org. I've actually never been on that website, so that's definitely a great one to check out. But a little bit about Tori. Tori is the CEO of a company called Reset Your Nest, which is an organization company based in Utah. She says, as a resident of Silicon Valley, Tori Horton brings over 20 years of startup experience and has worked with over 10 early stage companies, some of which were funded by major venture capitalist firms, including Andreessen Horowitz, Northgate Capital, Lightspeed Venture, and more. Prior to joining Reset Your Nest, Tori worked at PayPal as a senior product manager and was responsible for women's economic empowerment as a member of the global social innovation team. Tori's goal as CEO of Reset Your Nest is to revalue the care economy while supporting households with a limited time to organize their space while making life easier. And so, wow, what an amazing background, so many different industries, but definitely some great life experience and just an amazing woman. So with that, we're excited to turn the time over to Tori.
Yay, thanks so much, Mallory. Double checking, can you guys all hear me? Yes, okay, great. Here we go. And you can see my screen now too. Financing your future. I want to start by saying I am so glad to be here. I am currently the CEO, and that's what Mallory already told you, but I'm also the mom of 2 awesome kids. I have a 14-year-old Josh and an 11-year-old Annabelle. So I checked this with them and they said it's mostly not boring, and I'm going to do my best to be engaging while I have you guys this time. So I hope that's also helpful. All right. At any point, you guys are more than welcome to jump in, ask questions, share your own personal stories. Sometimes it's fun to hear from you as well. So please don't be shy if you feel like sharing or commenting. I am super excited to talk to you guys about my favorite topic, and that's money. And the reason that I like talking about money is a really important form of power. And when I say the word power, I don't think we talk enough about how awesome it is to be women with power. And power in and of itself can be a really great positive word. And it's such an important thing that we each claim our own power for ourselves to think about, where do we want to be? How do we want to show up in the world? And then take that power and be able to exercise it and get the things that we want. So this might be the power that you guys have, you know, when you're negotiating with your parents to stay out a little bit later with your friends. This might be the power that you have when you're chatting with your teachers about when your homework is going to be due, or when you know that you're not going to be able to turn something in on time and you need to have a conversation about what you need to do in order to turn it in a little bit later. But when I think about power, this is really thinking about our ability to achieve our goals. And that can be on any level. And money is one of the ways that we get to accomplish these goals, because money can help us, you know, set us up or purchase the things that we want in our lives. Really, when it comes to it, though, it's our ability to make the world the way that we want it. And, you know, I grew up here in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I spent a lot of time, you know, living in Utah before I moved to the Bay Area. And I realized when I moved and when I had my own kids, all of a sudden, like, all the responsibilities were on me. I was the mom and people were looking for me to be like, what are the answers? And it was super important for me to embrace this power and be like, oh, I need to have enough money to be able to, you know, pay for our house. I need to have enough money to pay for our food. I need to have enough money to pay for the clothes. Nobody ever talked to me about how do I get this money, but I really need money in order to have the life that I want, in order to have, you know, the conversations with my kids about when they're like, can we go to the store and get ice cream? I need money to do that. And so it's super important that we start these conversations much, much earlier. 14 is the perfect age to start talking about money. And it's a great time to ask your family, you know, and to ask other adults in your life who you see getting the things that they want, like, how did they do it? And what were the ways that they got there? And one of the questions can be, you know, tell me about your job. Tell me about how you got your job. Tell me about what schools you had to go to get your job. And tell me about how much money does it take to have this lifestyle? And especially for your mentors, this is such a great question to go ask your mentors, because these are other women who have signed up and said they're here to help talk about how they're successful and to help you figure out how to be successful. Ask your mentors, like, how do you live your lifestyle and how much money do you need to live your lifestyle? It's a super important question to be asking early on as you start thinking about, what kind of life do I want to live when I'm an adult? And maybe when I have, you know, my own decisions about where I want to live, and what kinds of things I'd like to be able to, you know, have in my life.
Tori, we got a question. Raya said that she'd like to learn more about what you mean when you say talk about money.
Yeah, I mean, like Mallory, let's just pretend that you and I are having this conversation, and you could pretend that you were my mentee, and you might actually just be like, hey, can you tell me how much, you know, how do you think about your lifestyle? How expensive is it to live in California? Can you tell me, like, you know, and so these would be the kinds of questions. So, you know, I might ask my mentor, like, you know, again, so I'll just like pair it back for you guys, right? Things that you could ask me as as a mentor. You know, is it expensive to live in California? That's a way to ask about money. I'd be like, yeah, it's way more expensive to live in California than it is in Utah. It's about twice as much. And in California, you really need to make above $100,000 just to make ends meet. In Utah, you need to make about $40,000 to make ends meet. You go, oh, okay. Well, what kinds of jobs do you need to have in order to make that kind of salary? And then we can talk about ranges too. So that's another way. Instead of saying like, hey, Tori, can you tell me exactly how much money you make? You could say like, hey, can you give me a range? I used to be a product manager, which is a role. A product manager living in the Bay Area usually makes $120,000 up to like $300,000. And so that would be my range. And I was a senior product manager, so I was up higher on that range. So maybe like $200,000, right? And then you go, oh, great. A product manager makes about $200,000, and that's that lifestyle. In Utah, that same job would probably make between $90,000 and $150,000. But that's a great lifestyle in Utah. So it lets you think about like, where do I want to live? And then like, what kinds of jobs would I have? The New York Times just barely, so I'm like jumping, but the New York Times just barely put out, they asked 400 people on the streets of New York how much money they made. Does anyone have a guess? They asked 400 people if they would share how much money they made. How many people were actually willing to share that salary? Mallory, can you see chat? Is anyone making it? If they ask 400 people, how many people do you think shared that number?
Someone's guessing 1.
Ooh, more than 1.
15.
More than 15. 40 people shared. And most of them were making at the low end. So they were like, I'm making $30,000 or $40,000, and I live in New York City where you need to make $100,000 or more, and I'm figuring out how to make it work. It's one of those things that we haven't quite yet figured out. How do we talk about money with everybody globally? But it's a form of power, and people who have a lot of money and who aren't talking about it, they're keeping that power for themselves. And as young women who are coming up and trying to figure out, where do you want to be? And like, what kinds of jobs do you want? It's a great question to ask of like, can you tell me about this lifestyle? How much do you need? Can you give me a range for how much you need to live this lifestyle? And can you talk to me about some careers that might live that lifestyle? As you're imagining what you want to grow into, those are some great ways to just start having conversations about money. Your parents are a great place to start. Your mentor is a great place to start. And even like a high school counselor is another great place to start to have those questions. Okay, super good question. I love it. Keep them coming. So I want to talk about money, but money is not the only way that we get power. So a lot of times people talk about power as like our capital. So this is like all the tools that we have to help us get what we want. And there are 8 forms that I want to talk to you guys about today. I want to talk about social capital, material capital, living capital, experience capital, culture capital, intellectual capital, spiritual capital, and then finance capital, which is the money piece at the end. And I want you guys to have in your mind something that you want. So if you're, 14, you might be thinking about, and maybe we should just ask, like, when you guys think about college, like, are you guys starting to think about how you're saving for college? Is that a good question? That's like the topic of this January, right? So if you guys have a piece of paper, you could write like, how am I getting ready for college at the top of the paper? And then as we go through each one of these, you could write one thing that you can do for each of these kinds of capital. Okay, so we're going to start with social. Social capital is how we connect with our friends and our families. It's how we connect with our mentors or anyone else. You can measure social capital kind of in 2 different ways. Sometimes we call this like popularity, and that could just be how many friends do you have? And do all your friends, do you all do the same thing, or do you have friends that are in different groups? Do you have the theater friends and you have the sports friends and you have the fashion friends? That could be how many friends do you have and in how many different groups do you have them? And that's one way to measure your social capital, is just how connected are you to the people in your community? And the other way is like, how deep are those relationships, right? And that's just as valid a way to have social capital as like, you have a couple friends and you guys like wake up and like you're checking in with each other from the minute you wake up to when you get to school. You know what's going on all day long, what's going on after school, and you check in before you go to bed, and you're really, really close with a couple of friends. And you can sort of be anywhere in between on that. Social capital can be, you have a wide variety of ages of friends or like demographics of friends, right? That's another way to think about social capital is, who are the different people that you have in your network? And I think, Mallory, we spent like September, that was what we talked about, was our network, right? So this is exactly what you guys have been talking about all year long, is like, how do you build your social capital? Because who you know helps you figure out where you want to be and helps you figure out, especially if you want access to more resources, often you need to know somebody to help you get that access. My guess is that most of you knew someone who said, you guys should do Women Who Succeed. So you can already check that off as like, hey, I have social capital that got me into Women Who Succeed. I'm succeeding already. And I want you guys to think, as you're thinking about how do I prepare for college, who's one person or like one relationship that you would want to build to help you as you keep getting ready for college. And especially as you think about who's going to write me a letter of recommendation, like this is a really great thing to be like, I remember I had a piano teacher and I played piano all the way along. And sometimes I played piano really well and sometimes I didn't practice very well. And I needed somebody to write me a letter of recommendation for college. And I asked my piano teacher. And after I gave her the letter, I was like, is she going to tell them about all the weeks that I never showed up with my practicing done? Or is she going to tell them that I'm going to be a good student when I get to college? And I'm sure she said good things, but she was somebody that going through it, I didn't really think that I was going to, need that letter of recommendation. And that was a really important ask for me. And so those relationships matter a lot, especially as you're looking for, will somebody recommend me when I go to college? And the other thing that I would recommend to everybody, and I cannot say this enough, is how important thank you notes are when you're trying to build those relationships with people that you don't know very well. And so just even the little thing of like, if I dare any of you, I challenge you, when you're done with this, write a note to Mallory after today and be like, Mallory, thanks for hosting these sessions. Those thank you notes mean so much. And it's that moment where someone goes, oh, this person like sees that I'm putting effort in and I can see that they're meeting me there. I'm going to come up with more ways to like reach out and to help and to support them because I can see that they're meeting me with a thank you note and they see that I'm connecting. Send your mentor a thank you note at some point. These are the ways that you build that social capital. Anyone have an experience of like a positive social capital moment that you've had? Mallory, has anyone ever written you a thank you note?
They have. And I actually keep them because on tough days, I really enjoy going back and just getting that reminder that, what we do helps girls and it helps make a difference. So you may think it isn't a big deal, but we really appreciate it. I know other people do as well.
Yay. Okay, next one to chat about is material. So this is another form of capital. And it can be any kind of material, right? So like how many clothes you have can be a form of capital. If you can lend your clothes to your friends, maybe your friends will do something nice for you and then you let them borrow your shirt or whatever. You can have lots of different kinds of material capital. And there are companies that have built entire businesses around sharing capital. So right now I'm actually in an Airbnb. Somebody has taken their house and they've said, I'm going to share my house and I'm going to let you pay me to stay in my house. And that's like they're making money just by having an extra space that I can come stay in. So saving up your money so that you can buy assets that then you can rent out or share or put on the, the consumer economy. Those are actually ways to then make more money just from a standing asset that you own. So that's capital. A way that you guys, oh, this didn't get changed. I wonder if this is going to get changed in other ones. All right, I might have a problem here. I'm going to have to go back to my other set of notes. Ways that you can think about your material capital would be things like, are you saving up and then are you buying things that don't lose value? Or are you buying things that you could share? So like Uber drivers, they buy their car and then they drive people around their car and they get a little bit of extra money for it. Most people, when you buy a car, they joke that like the minute you buy that car and take it off the lot, you just start losing money on that car. But an asset that we talked about just barely would be your 529. If you invest in that 529, that's an asset for your education. That's a form of capital. And that's like material capital that you could then say, like, I own a savings account like that. All right, the next kind of capital is just your bodily health. And this is one that's super easy to forget and not take care of or just to take for granted. And like for me, it's always that like if ever I hurt my hand or like something basic, and I'm like, oh, I can't use my hand for a couple of days. All of a sudden I'm like, I'm so grateful for my hand. I really need my hand. So you always like know it when you don't have it and you forget to be grateful for it when you do. But things that you can do to invest in your living capital are really thinking about, are you getting enough sleep? Are you eating healthy things? Are you making good decisions and making sure that you're feeding your body because you need food, but you need good food for your body? Are you getting out and getting exercise? Even are you taking time to like grow plants or have relationships with animals or, other things that make you feel centered and calm? These are all ways to invest in your living capital. As we think about this and apply it to like, how do I prepare for college? Does anyone have an idea about something that you were thinking comes to mind? What could you do for living capital to get ready for college? This is a hard one. I'm kind of making everyone stretch and think a little bit.
So something that I thought about was like you can eat healthier, or you can like sleep better for when you need to take like important tests like ACT or etc.
Yes, perfect example. I love that. That's exactly right.
And then Zoe also says, start healthy habits so that you can live healthfully on your own.
Zoe, great example. Like, exactly. That's another one that you guys could start right now and would be prepping you for when you go to college. Great answers. Okay, experiential capital. This is just getting new experiences. And, sometimes for this is like having courage to do something, even if you don't know if it's going to be successful at the end, and leaning in and being your best. So experiences are like, are you open to taking risks? When someone says, hey, do you want to try this new thing? Or do you want to go, to this new restaurant? Sometimes it's easy to just be like, I don't know, and I want to stay safe, so I'm just going to say no to everything. And experiential capital is saying yes and being open to trying new things. And even sometimes experiential capital could be saying like, hey, I'm really comfortable where I am. I'm going to think about like what else I might want to do, and like have a crazy idea and go try it. I remember I was at college and I thought, I could totally graduate and like have gone to this college in Utah my whole life, and that would be great, but it might be really cool to travel abroad. So I went and I found that there was a travel study program at my university, and I ended up putting in an application, and they helped me to go live in Vienna for a semester. And I got to study in Vienna, and that was a totally new experience that I got, just because I was like, I'm kind of bored here in Utah. Is the only place I've ever lived. I think I want to try something else. And I went and found some experiences. And as you guys are thinking about how this helps you for college, like maybe asking your family if you could take a road trip and go see a couple of different colleges and go walk around on some different campuses to see what that might feel like, helps you start imagining yourself in different places. And those experiences then help you start thinking about where you really think you might want to be. And I can guarantee you, even if you're going up to the University of Utah and you write in your application that like, I went up to the U and I walked around and I went to the cafeteria and I got a Coke, and it made me realize that this is the place for me. Like the U is going to love hearing that from you, and they're going to love that you've taken the time to build those experiences and imagine yourself at that university. So go out and find those experiences and go seek those opportunities to see things and try things and see how it feels. All right, we're almost done. Cultural experiences. And this is cultural capital can be your ability to just go into different spaces and feel comfortable and understand what's appropriate and understand what's not appropriate. Every culture has different things that are okay, and really understanding how do you fit in whatever community you're in and what's okay in that community is definitely a form of capital. And it keeps you from like saying things or doing things that you're embarrassed about later, because you've had those experiences to help you understand and move in different places. So sometimes I think about cultural capital as like, how complex is my identity? And what I mean by that is we all have different ways that people know us. So I go to work and I have one identity, and I come home and I'm a mom and I have another identity, and I might go out with my friends and they know me as a friend and that's another identity. All of these are cultural capital of who am I and where do I fit in my communities. And sometimes I might go to work and have like a really bad day and like it just doesn't all go well. And I come home and my kids are like, Mom, we love you. We're happy to see you. And I'm like, oh, everything's okay. Because, in one part of my life, things are going well. And then like the next day we might wake up and my daughter might, get mad at me because I look at her wrong. And sometimes I do. And sometimes she does get mad at me. And then I go to work and my friends at work are like, hey, sometimes daughters and moms get mad at each other, and that's okay. That's just part of how it goes. It's nice to have different people who know you in different ways to have more cultural capital. That makes sense? Can you guys think of a time when cultural capital has been good for you? Because then you don't go like, oh, everything's bad everywhere all the time, and like, I'm terrible and nobody likes me ever. You go like, oh, in this one moment, this one person might not have liked me, or I might not have had a great experience, but like, when I go to this other place, everything's okay. And like, I'm loved there. So it's not everywhere that things are bad. It's just a little thing, and I can work on that. Any thoughts here? how you could build your own cultural capital. Mallory, I can't see anyone chatting. This one's another hard one.
Nope, I'm monitoring though.
Okay. Do you have any ideas?
Yeah, I really like where you talk about getting outside of what's normal for you and learning to see the world from new perspectives. I think that really impacts the rest of your life. And the other experiences that you have after that, you are able to see future experiences in a different way because of the perspective that you gain. I know that was the case for me with some of the experiences I had when I was younger.
And sometimes when you walk into a room for the first time, it's like super scary and overwhelming. But then at another point, you're going to have to walk into another room where you don't know anyone. You think, I did it last time and it was okay. Like I can do it again. And it's just a little less scary. And then the next time it's a little less scary. So getting out and having those experiences is helpful. And like at college, you might want to be part of different clubs or different groups, or you have to make new friends. And all of this cultural capital helps make those experiences easier for you. Okay. Intellectual capital, the more you know, the better you can do. The more you know, the more opportunities that you have. So this is one that I think is pretty self-explanatory, but it's like why going to school is so important, why taking your grades is so important, but really using it as like, it's not, the point is not to get an A. The A just reflects the point, which is to really know something really, really well and to be, intelligent and to be smart about something. So intellectual capital can just be measured by how much do you know. A really dumb way that right now we measure intellectual capital is we have you take things like the ACT and the SAT, and we see like how well did you do on this test, and we give you a score. But that's only one kind of intellectual capital. Sometimes intellectual capital can be like emotional intelligence too, like seeing that your friend is having a bad day and being able to pick up on it quickly. That's a form of intelligence. Spiritual capital is the way that we take care, and I use this like spiritual very, very broadly. It's the way that we take care of ourselves and the ways that we help to make sure that we feel grounded and that, that we own our own emotions and that we're grounded with our emotions. Spiritual capital can be built by your own personal satisfaction, knowing that you're doing a good job and telling yourself positive stories. It can also be built when you take time for stillness, or if you spend time in nature or spend time in other places that help you to feel reverence and feel connected. And lastly, capital that we talk some about here is how do you build your financial capital? And so some of the things that we talked about, and like the Jenny who shared earlier, every single one of you could, go on and set up a My 529 plan, and you could put a little bit of money aside. You could even ask your grandparents, instead of giving you a gift, maybe they could, contribute to your 529 savings plan. And that would be a way that you could start preparing now and saving so that you have something set aside when it comes time to go to college. And the other way that you can think about your finances is you could think about like, what kind of job could you get? And could you save any money from that job? And everything from babysitting to, baking things and selling it, or to actually going and, like as you get just a little bit, anyone who's 16 or, if you take a summer job, sometimes there are opportunities to take jobs and earn money there. And those are really great ways to build your finance capital. Does anyone have an example of how you've made money that you're pretty proud of?
I'll give it a second while everyone thinks about it, but we had a mentee who learned how to do screen printing, and she was in high school, and she ended up getting so good at it that the National Park Service reached out to her and asked her to make some t-shirts.
That's a great story.
Isn't that cool?
Yeah.
Anyone else have any great examples? It doesn't need to be that intense. It can be something small like babysitting or doing lawn work.
Or even just, checking with your parents and seeing if you can do chores around the house. The other one that I actually like, when we think about how we have finance capital, some of it is how do I make money, but equally important is how do I save money? And that savings is so, so important. When they looked at people in their life trajectories, There's a really big difference between those who figure out how to save and just don't spend every single penny every time that they make money. Those who's figured out how to save do better over the course of their life. So when you do get a gift of money, or when you do get a little bit of money, like making it a habit to just put some of it aside and not spend it is such a great habit and such a great way to build your capital. Okay, so I hope that all of this comes back to this overarching question that we have for this month, which is, how can my capital help me go to college and succeed? And I hope that some of the things that we talked about give you guys some ideas about what you might do to build your own capital.
Wow, that was amazing, Tori. That was fantastic. Thank you so much for preparing and all of the thought and effort that went into that. We want to open up just the last few minutes for anyone who may have questions for Tori, either about her presentation, about her life and career, anything that you'd like to hear.
Any money questions that you want to ask me? I'm here for all of it.
Okay, well, if no one has any questions, Tori is amazing. And if you'd like to have, pass along any questions to her, please reach out to us. And we're happy to pass those along to Tori. And we'll also be recording today's session, and we'll be sending it out after. So if you want to see her slides, you want to listen again, or you want to share it with a sister, someone in your family, you're welcome to do so as well. Tori, any final thoughts or anything that you'd like to wrap up with?
Nope, I think that's everything. Thanks for having me today. It's fun to see all the women who succeed and who are, all of you guys who are coming and participating in this program. I'm so excited for all of you.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much. And we hope that you all have a wonderful night and drive safe. And Tori, will see you in a few minutes for our mentee workshop.
Sounds good. Bye, guys.
Thanks all.